The evening sun sank behind the towering glass walls of Falcon Dynamics, painting the city in shades of amber and steel. The rooftop helipad gleamed under the light, and beside it stood Victoria Hale, the kind of CEO people both feared and admired. She was known for her precision, her sharp tongue, and her refusal to be impressed by anyone. Her empire of aviation technology had conquered every market, yet even as she stared at her newest acquisition, a state-of-the-art black helicopter, she craved something more. Control, perfection, and power were her lifeblood, and she fed on them daily. But that day, something, or rather, someone, disturbed her sense of superiority. Down below, near the hangar, a janitor was working quietly, mopping the spotless floor with steady movements. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell slightly over his forehead. His name tag read Ethan. Most people in the building didn't even notice him, but Victoria had seen him before, always alone, always on time, always calm. Something about him was different. Not the usual defeated look that most low-level employees wore around her. No, his eyes had a certain depth, like he'd seen too much, and survived it. It annoyed her, in a strange way, that a janitor could carry such quiet confidence. Ethan, right, she called down suddenly, her voice slicing through the hum of engines and distant chatter. He looked up, startled but polite. Yes, ma'am, he replied, his tone respectful yet steady. You seem fascinated by my helicopter, she said, tilting her head toward the sleek machine gleaming behind her. Just admiring the craftsmanship, ma'am, he said simply, lowering his gaze. It's a beautiful aircraft. Her lips curved in amusement. Beautiful, yes, but it's not something for people like you to think about flying. The workers nearby chuckled, sensing her mocking tone. Ethan didn't flinch. Maybe not, he said quietly, but beauty deserves respect. Machines like that respond to trust, not arrogance. His words hit her pride like a blade. The laughter died down a little, uncertain of the shift in tone. She crossed her arms. Trust. I don't need to trust a machine. I own it. Ethan's calm eyes met hers, and he said softly, you can own a bird, ma'am, but that doesn't mean it'll fly for you. For the first time in a long while, Victoria was left speechless. Then, to cover her irritation, she laughed. All right, philosopher janitor, she said mockingly. Tell you what, fly this helicopter and I'll marry you. The words spilled out like a challenge, sharp and sarcastic. The hangar erupted in laughter. Her assistants, the mechanics, even the security guards chuckled. A janitor flying a Falcon Dynamics aircraft. It was absurd, but Ethan didn't laugh. He studied her face, then looked at the helicopter, and something unreadable passed through his eyes. You sure about that? He asked quietly, wiping his hands with a rag. She raised an eyebrow, still smirking. Absolutely. Go ahead, impress me. He gave a slow nod and began walking toward the helicopter. Wait. He's serious. One of the mechanics whispered, eyes wide. Ethan climbed into the cockpit as if he had done it 1,000 times. His movements were smooth, practiced, almost reverent. Victoria's smirk faded slightly as she watched him adjust the controls, flip switches, and run his hand over the instrument panel with the precision of a professional. The rotors began to spin, blades cutting the air into roaring gusts. Get back, someone shouted, and people backed away as wind and noise filled the hangar. Victoria shielded her face from the dust, her hair whipping wildly, as the helicopter lifted off the ground with perfect control. For a few breathless seconds, all she could do was stare. The aircraft rose into the sky, hovered gracefully, tilted forward, then circled back with flawless precision before descending to a smooth, silent landing. The moment the engines powered down, Ethan stepped out, calm as ever, as if he'd merely parked a car. The crowd was stunned. No one spoke. Victoria's voice came out unsteady. How did you do that? Ethan said nothing at first. He removed his gloves, wiped his forehead, then rolled up his sleeve. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. On his forearm, in stark black ink, was the insignia of the Falcon Air Division, the same elite unit from which Falcon Dynamics had taken its name. A detailed falcon with wings spread wide, clutching a dagger, and beneath it the unit's motto, honor in silence. Victoria froze. That symbol wasn't something you could just copy. Only the best pilots in the nation, men who had completed impossible rescue missions and survived deadly crashes, bore it. "You're one of them?" she asked in disbelief. Ethan nodded slightly. "Was," he said simply. "A long time ago." And with that, he walked past her, the echo of his footsteps lost beneath the stunned murmurs of the hangar. That night, long after everyone had gone, Victoria found herself sitting in her glass-walled office, replaying the scene again and again in her head. She, who had mocked a janitor, had just witnessed him fly her newest helicopter better than her best test pilot. And that tattoo, it wasn't just a mark. It was a legacy. She couldn't stop thinking about the quiet dignity in his eyes, the way he didn't boast or explain, the way he simply let truth reveal itself. She tried to look him up in the company records, but there was nothing. No past employment, no military background listed. Just Ethan Cole, janitorial staff. It made her restless. She wasn't used to mysteries, especially ones that humbled her. So, when she saw him again the next evening, sitting outside the hangar beneath the floodlights, she approached him without her usual confidence. "You didn't have to show me that," she said, stopping a few feet away. "You could have let me stay ignorant." He smiled faintly. "Ignorance isn't a bad thing, ma'am. It's pride that hurts people." His words struck again, quietly but deeply. She sat down beside him on the cold metal bench, a little awkwardly. "You were a Falcon pilot," she said softly. "Why are you here cleaning floors?" He didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the dark horizon. "Because I lost my wings," he said after a pause. "Not the tattooed kind. The real ones." Victoria frowned. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath. 5 years ago, my unit was on a rescue mission in a storm. We were bringing civilians out of a crash zone. The weather was bad, worse than predicted. My co-pilot and I argued about turning back, but I pushed forward. We saved the people, but my chopper went down. I made it out alive. My wife and daughter didn't." His voice broke slightly, but he kept looking forward. "After that, the sky stopped feeling like home. I grounded myself, took whatever job kept me near aircraft, near the thing that used to define me." Victoria was silent, unable to speak. She'd spent her entire life chasing perfection, power, control, thinking that was strength. But sitting beside this man, she felt small. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." He turned to her then, his gaze calm, forgiving. "You didn't need to. You see what's in front of you, like most people. A title, a suit, a broom. Not the story behind them." She looked away, feeling a sting in her chest. "You know," she said quietly, "my father was an engineer. Brilliant, humble. He worked on aircraft designs for years, but he was mocked by his boss, someone like me, I guess. When he died, I swore I'd never let anyone make me feel small again. But somewhere along the line, I became the person I hated most." Ethan studied her for a moment. "Maybe," he said gently, "you just forgot that people can be more than their job titles." The next morning, rumors spread like wildfire. The CEO had flown out with the janitor. At first, people thought it was another one of her bold stunts, but when they saw the two of them climbing into the cockpit of that same helicopter, side by side, no one dared to laugh. Victoria sat in the co-pilot's seat, nervous but determined. Ethan adjusted the controls with ease. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. "You remember what I said before?" she asked, half grinning. "About marrying you if you flew it." He laughed quietly. "Yeah, I remember." "Well," she said, glancing out the window, "maybe I should learn to fly first." "Good start," he replied, his tone soft but teasing. As the helicopter rose into the blue morning, the city shrinking beneath them, Victoria felt her heart race, not from fear, but from something new, something freeing. The sky stretched out endlessly before them, golden with sunrise. She looked at Ethan, his face calm and sure, and for the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about control or power. She was thinking about trust. "You still miss it, don't you?" she asked. He nodded slightly. "Every day. But I've learned," You can lose the sky and still find peace. Sometimes it's not about flying high, it's about flying right. She smiled faintly. You're wiser than most people in my boardroom. I'm older in the places that count, he said with a shrug. They hovered above the clouds, the world below distant and quiet. The moment stretched between them, two people from opposite worlds, yet strangely alike. Ethan, she said softly, you could have stayed angry. You could have hated the world for what happened. Maybe, he said, but I'd rather live with gratitude than grief. The sky took a lot from me. But it still gives me mornings like this. Victoria's throat tightened. She looked at the rising sun, its reflection glinting off the helicopter's windshield. You're right, she whispered. Sometimes we just forget to look up. As they descended back toward Falcon Dynamics, the employees gathered below watched in awe. The landing was smooth, perfect. The door opened, and Victoria stepped out beside Ethan, not as a CEO and a janitor, but as equals. For the first time, she addressed her staff not with arrogance, but sincerity. This man reminded me what Falcon stands for, she said, her voice clear. Not power, not wealth, but respect, for the sky, for the people who keep us flying, and for those who once fell but stood up again. That night, the two of them stood again on the helipad, watching the stars. You know, Victoria said, her tone gentle, if I ever said that marriage thing again, would you take me seriously this time? Ethan looked at her, his eyes reflecting the night sky. Only if you promise to let me teach you how to fly, he said softly. She smiled. Deal. And as the wind brushed past them, carrying the faint hum of distant engines, two souls, one who had lost the sky and one who had forgotten how to see it, finally learned what it truly meant to soar.